You are listening to KC Sports Network, proudly presented by Emprise Bank, your partner in possible.
It's time for another edition of The Breakdown. I'm Matt Hamilton, that's Matt Cassel, and the Chiefs rebounded in a big way, getting the win over the division rival Broncos. We saw some vintage Mahomes. We saw Mahomes make a few mistakes too. We're going to dig into all of it. And Matt, we talked about it last week. We thought this game might be a little closer than expected because despite the Broncos' record, we know that defense is really good. I don't think anybody expected that game to play out the way it did. It was a high-scoring, back-and-forth, fun game. We saw the Broncos storm back into it. If you were to tell me it was close and it was like a 20-14 game, I would have been like, okay, I see that. Were you as surprised as I was to see this thing get so high-scoring?
I was, and I was shocked even, in the first half because the Kansas City Chiefs, they did a good job of taking advantage. They hit the flat route in that first series, was able to move the ball down the field. Second series, chunk play to Travis Kelce down the middle, 2 field goals right off the bat. I said, hey, this is going the right direction. And then Mahomes' magic shows up, the McKinnon underhand toss, no look, whatever you want to call it, just magical, and he goes down. So they jump out to a 27-point lead. I'm saying, should I just turn this game off? Because I had no faith at all in the Broncos being able to, 1, get back in that game, but 2, be able to score 28 points because let's be honest, they haven't scored more than 10 points since October. But it was fascinating how it all worked out because they capitalized on some turnovers. The Denver Broncos did. Russell Wilson had a good game. Jerry Jeudy came back and he made some tremendous plays, had 3 touchdowns. But then it was on. It was a battle in the second half. The defense for the Denver Broncos kind of settled in. They started to make some stops, and it went down to the wire. And at the end of the day, though, the Kansas City Chiefs made enough plays, and Patrick Mahomes made enough plays despite some of the turnovers, and that's what you want to see. Those division games, you never know what can happen. It's always wild. You're familiar with that opponent. They had a good defense over there, but I never envisioned the Denver Broncos being able to put up that many points.
Yeah, and it's crazy because it's kind of what we expected the Broncos offense to look like all year. We haven't seen it at all. I don't think there's been a single game where the Broncos offense has looked that capable. But we know that the talent is there. I mean, they have Russell Wilson. They have Jerry Jeudy. Like you said, he was looking like the guy everybody expected him to turn into this year. Are you concerned about the Chiefs' defense out of this? Or do you think it was just, hey, maybe the Broncos, these playmakers, the talent, like they just played up to their potential for that game?
They did play up to their potential. Russell Wilson made some plays with his legs, but then again, you look at the Kansas City Chiefs stats, right? And that's why sometimes stats can be misleading, but they had 6 sacks. They had 7 tackles for loss. They harassed Russell Wilson all day long, and they created pressure. I thought they were good against the run, but it was when they got down in that fringe red area that they gave up some shots. Jerry Jeudy beat the 1-on-1 matchup on the outside on the 1. He just runs by him. The second touchdown pass was just a blown coverage. You had combo coverage out there. You had 2 guys on 1. Nobody accounted for Jerry Jeudy on the corner, so that's just a blown coverage. There's things like that you definitely have to tighten up. There's a lot of positive in this game for the Kansas City Chiefs defense, but again, you have to be able to step up, it's particularly in the red zone as it gets into these December games and as you start to get into playoffs.
Do you think it was a matter of maybe losing focus a little bit for the Chiefs? When you get that type of a lead, you get the plays like Willie Gay made. It's a feeding frenzy on the quarterback. They were demolishing Russell early. Do you think it gets to the point where it's like, all right, like we're getting pick sixes, we're teeing off on the quarterback, guys start getting a little too aggressive, trying to rack up some stats, make plays versus sticking to their responsibilities? Do you think that might have been it?
Some of it. I mean, some of the Russell Wilson scrambles and stuff like that, that absolutely is what happened. The aggressiveness of the defensive line, they were getting after him all day long. They lost their integrity in those rush lanes and allowed him to get out and open and run. Some of it is, you hit that lull in the game when you're up 27-0 against an opponent that you think that you should dominate and you are dominating. Sometimes that happens. Then again, there's 2 short fields on the turnovers, so they didn't have to go that far. And the screen pass was just a beautifully executed play by the Denver Broncos on that one play. They got guys out in front, and then they missed the tackle in the secondary, and he's able to take it to the house call for a 65-yarder or whatever it was. So those are plays. If you eliminate the big screen play, then you're talking about 2 short fields on turnovers that really they scored on, and then 1 sustained drive in the second half. But I'm not too worried about it. I just know that there's things that you have to do as a defense in terms of the red zone, where you have to play your best football and you can't let guys like Jerry Jeudy beat you. And I don't know if going into this game they really looked at him as this huge weapon or threat, because he hasn't shown that throughout the course of the year. Some of that's due to injury, but at the same time, he showed up in a big way and showed why Jerry Jeudy, when healthy, can be an effective player in this league.
Absolutely. And you just, you hope if you're a Broncos fan that he can start putting those types of performances together consistently, because the ceiling is so high for him. But on the offensive side for the Chiefs, it was another magical performance out of Patrick Mahomes. Finding a way to make it work once again with that rotating cast of characters. What did you make out of what we saw from Patrick? Obviously, there was a lot of good, like we talked about. There were those interceptions. How would you evaluate this performance from Mahomes?
You know what? It was interesting because as you watched him through the first quarter and into the second half, he took what they gave you, especially early on the drive. Look, they had a lot of guys in the interior part of the defense. They took those flat routes, but they created chunk routes. They're catching runs. I like the rhythm in which he played with, a lot of quick plays, but also the creativities and those special plays that only Patrick Mahomes can do in the NFL. I mean, it's so unique. And every week, it's almost like you're spoiled. You turn on the game and you watch him, and he's a walking, talking highlight reel, right? And so it's those, but you also, because of some of that unorthodox play and because of his ability to make plays, sometimes, I wouldn't say he necessarily was forcing some of the balls. Some of them were just off platform. And sometimes you just got to give great credit to the defense. We talked about this defense leading into this game, that they are a good defense. They give up just over 20 points a game up to this point. And so you knew it was going to be somewhat of a grind, but they got off to a good start. I thought they utilized the screen game well. And then in terms of Patrick Mahomes and the turnovers, look, Jewel made some really good plays at that linebacker position. Every one of them, he's diving, he makes the play. And would you like to have him back? Yes. But that is an outlier for Patrick Mahomes. That's not going to happen every week, and we know that. It's just this week they got their hands on some balls, and they're able to take advantage of it.
Yeah, and you mentioned it. I think we are kind of spoiled by what we've seen out of Patrick Mahomes. Just, I think between Chiefs fans and just even nationally, we've seen so much of this. I don't want it to become normalized what he's done and what he's doing.
Right.
He made a couple of plays that were two of the most creative and incredible throws I've ever seen from a quarterback. So I think we need to appreciate those for just how absurd they were, and just his season as a whole for how remarkable it's been. When you look at, we talk about it every week, just with all the different playmakers that he's had to play with throughout the course of the season. It does sound like McCole Hardman is close to coming back. They're activating his practice window. He could even play as early as this Sunday. So that's exciting news for Chiefs fans. But let's dig into some of those plays and just truly appreciate them, break them down kind of step by step, and appreciate what Mahomes is able to do.
You start with a good one here, Hamilton.
Oh yeah, we got to come out firing. We got to bring out the big guns to start.
Yeah, so it's 3rd and 2, and when you look at this formation, they're in a bunch set. They've got a guy running to the flat right now. You got a spray go, and then you've kind of got that stick or spot route on the inside by Kelsey. So this is truly something that you're trying to get to the sticks or get across the sticks, make a completion. And so when you look at the defensive structure for the Denver Broncos here, they're playing really what we call as 3 weak, right? They're dropping the safety in weak. It's a zone coverage, but you can see that they're very aware about where the sticks are, because the Kansas City Chiefs a lot of times will get to the sticks or get right around the sticks, and that's where those completions come. But in addition to that, they drop out the backside in. So it's an additional defender on the interior part. So they went from having 4 guys to now having 5. So they're very aware of what's taking place. The only guy that you could possibly go to is right there on the flat route. It's an original. It's the original flat route right there. He's first in your progression. If you feel that guy right now, you got to let that ball go. But everything else is covered here, and they do a really good job, again, of defending the sticks. So from here, Patrick doesn't take his first read, and he sees that we're going to have some trouble. There's a lot of guys. So 3-man rush, he gets outside the pocket. And this is the beautiful part about it. Jerry McKinnon, a lot of times you'd love him to block that guy, but he's like, you know what? Patrick's going to do something special. So he does exactly that. He stiff arms the guy, And it looks like he's not even looking at him and underhands it, and it's a huge play. I mean, it's absolutely remarkable what this guy does, the vision that he has, and his playmaking ability. I mean, this is ridiculous. It's just ridiculous. You don't even have words to describe plays like this, because you can defend the Kansas City Chiefs offensive game plan, but then you also have to defend Patrick Mahomes and what he's capable of doing, which is so hard to do.
Yeah, and that's why it's the perfect marriage of a coaching staff and a quarterback, because there is so much creativity just naturally built into this offense that Andy Reid and Eric Bieniemy have created. But then there's all this freelance stuff that you can't possibly prepare for. And I love that you hit on McKinnon here too, because this play doesn't happen without him, because if he doesn't take off, if he doesn't just have that sense, that feel for Mahomes that, okay, he can do something special and take off down the sideline like that, this play doesn't happen either. So that's chemistry, that's trust between the two of those guys to make this happen, because this is something that just, this is one of those, as a coach, this is one of those moments where you're like,
oh, it was exactly how we drew it up.
Yeah, you don't necessarily love seeing your quarterback just kind of flip that ball out there underhand like that. But again, with Mahomes, you just got to let him be Mahomes, and good things happen more often than not. So you just got to have to roll with it. But as impressive as this was, and as mind-blowing as it was, this next one might have been even better, honestly, to Juju Smith-Schuster with the game on the line. This happens to be the touchdown that kind of sealed the Chiefs' victory. Walk us through this one, Matt.
Game on the line again. They like that bunch set up top. They got a cut split down below to their single receiver. They're going to run the quick out down here at the bottom of the page. But if you like it, you want to take it, then you can. But I don't like that matchup either. That's on Patrick Surtain. He's one of the best cornerbacks in the league right now. But this is also a concept that they're very familiar with. You've got the shallow. Behind that, you've got the corner route, and that's an option always. And then you've got Kelsey selling that flat route and coming back in the angle. We've shown you a few clips throughout the course of the year where that is one of their foundational pieces in terms of their red zone concepts that they like to run. When you look at the Denver Broncos, they're playing once again post-high zone defense. And when you look at it, the weak safety rotates down. They're going to bring the will linebacker. But what they do here is they exchange responsibility. So they bring that will linebacker, but it's not truly a blitz, because the front side defensive end up top near the bunch, he's going to drop into coverage to give them more presence at the goal line. So when you see that, it's pretty muddy, right? It's clouded. There's not a lot of people to go to. I can understand why Patrick is sitting there. He might have an opportunity to put it on Kelsey right now, but there's a lot of guys there. And then it's him improvising in the pocket. He looks one way, he spins around, gets out of a sack here, avoids his own guard. And then the most incredible part about this, we talk about his skill set, his creativity, his ability to make throws and all that, but it's also his toughness in which he plays with. This is an exceptionally hard play to sit in there, know that you're going to get blasted, still deliver the ball accurately in a big-time play, and make a play for your team when you needed it. Bam.
And he did. He got crunched. And I love, too, you're seeing this. We've kind of followed this storyline throughout the year, too, just how he's developed chemistry with Juju Smith-Schuster, because it wasn't there quite this way early in the year. Juju got off to a slow start with him. But you're seeing it now, I think, on this play, just the feel that Juju has. You'll see him. It's a shallow cross. If you just track him throughout this play, the way he's able to kind of keep his eyes on Mahomes, he works inside, then pops back outside, and Mahomes trusts him. He knows he's finding that open space and fires that ball back there. So we've seen this develop now, and I think there's a special connection brewing between these two guys.
I do too. And, the play is never over with Patrick Mahomes, and those guys understand it, and Juju understands it. And now that they're on the same page, I mean, you can see everybody working to get open because of his ability to get himself out, his escape ability to continue to extend a play. And so that as a wide receiver, you have your primary route that you're going to run. But as soon as you start to see Mahomes start to move around, hey, guess what? Now it's time to make that adjustment. I got to find a way to get open. And because of his incredible processing ability and vision, he's usually able to find those guys. And
while there was so much good and the Chiefs got the win and Mahomes was fantastic, there were those 3 interceptions, like we mentioned. I think we got to at least take a look at one of them here and kind of see what was going on with Patrick and with this offense. So, Matt, what did you see here?
Yeah, you're in a 2x2 set here, and really, when you look up top, you're going to have 2 hitches. So that's a take it if you like it. If they're off coverage, you really like the look, you can take that ball off the snap and rip it in there to either the outside or the inside guy. Now, I don't blame them for not throwing the inside guy because you've got that backer in there, that middle linebacker sitting there. But when you look at the structure of the defense, I think this is a man coverage right here. You can tell there's press coverage down low. But the interesting part about the defensive structure, you'll see this Sam linebacker is going to walk out. He's responsible for the running back, but through film study, through good coaching, they probably recognize the tendency because he moves out just to make sure that he doesn't get picked, because they know that they like to free release those backs and create picks. And those are a lot of times those big plays that you see Jarrett McKinnon get out. He's running a seam right here, but they do a good job with coverage. Safety's rotating down to take Kelsey. And then as you see it, Patrick Mahomes decides not to take one of the hitches up top. Instead, he's going to work down here to his 3-man combination with the spot, the free release back, and then Kelsey, I believe, is trying to run an in cut because that's the common route here. You've got a spot, and then in behind it, you're trying to work that in cut. And when you see it from this, you see the funnel player. I call him a funnel player because he's the guy that's there. He's looking for action. And Kelsey's trying to be a football player here. He knows that he can't run the in cut. So he's trying to just settle in this hole. He's a guy that understands defenses, understands how to get open, but Patrick just tries to lead him a little too much, and the backer's able to make a tremendous diving catch and get the interception.
Yeah, and I think if Mahomes is able to put that on Kelsey's back hip, I think there is a window there. Or if Kelsey keeps going, he can hit that second window. I don't know. I feel like Jewel does a great job. He has kind of both things covered. The only shot he has is if he goes to Kelsey's back hip. And I don't know if he didn't see Jewel or he saw him too late and was trying to get it on that back hip at Kelsey and just misfired. But yeah, you do have to give credit to the defense here. It's a well-designed coverage. As you pointed out, is a unique coverage, one that you don't see too often. Trying to account for all the rubs and crossers that the Chiefs like to work with. But yeah, sometimes you just got to tip your hat to the defense. I agree with you. I don't see anything from these interceptions that was super concerning from Mahomes. I think the Broncos they got him a couple times and made some excellent plays.
Yeah, I mean, every interception I've ever thrown in my career, it was really a good read and usually a good throw, but they got lucky. You know, that's what I always go on. I mean, that's what I always go with, right? I mean, come on. And no, at the end of the day, yeah, sometimes these guys are going to make plays, and they made a few tremendous plays in this game. Every one of those interceptions were one that you could possibly look at and say, man, do we got to review this? Because they get their hands on the ball, but it's not one of those where he's hitting them in the chest or it's a complete mental error. I think he's going to the right place with the ball. It's just a little less out in front, put it on the backside of Kelsey, and it works out. So those plays are going to happen, but the big part of this game is just when they needed him to step up in big moments and make those big plays, it was because of Patrick Mahomes that ultimately they won this game.
And they did, and they moved to 10-3. They're still in that 2 seed because the Bills were able to beat the Jets. So that race for the 1 seed is going to come down to the wire. I still like the Chiefs odds when you look at the schedules like we went into last week. But they have another one this weekend against a team that's really been struggling in the Houston Texans. The Texans they almost pulled one off over the Cowboys.
They did.
It took a late goal line stand followed by a 98-yard drive for the Cowboys to escape with that win. So do you think it's almost good in a way that's on tape? Like the Chiefs kind of see like, hey, this team is still fighting. They're still scrapping. We can't take them lightly. Or do you think, maybe it is a little bit of a trap game?
Well, after last week, that was kind of the wake-up call too, right? Because it was a team that you've beat 13 times. I know it's within the division. I understand that. But it's also you get out to a 27-point lead, and you're like, there's no way. But that's also a wake-up call to everybody that, look, the game's not over until that final whistle blows. And so this is another great example about that, because if you turn on the film and you watch the Houston Texans from last week, they didn't look like a 1-11-1 team, right? This is a team that still has fight. They still go out there and a lot of people always speculate, hey, when you get to this point in the season, you know the season's over, which they do. There's no possible way in which they make the playoffs, but they go out and take it to the wire against the Dallas Cowboys. Look, people in the NFL players, most of these guys, they have a tremendous amount of pride in what they do, and they want to go out and they want to win, even though the season's not gone as well as it has. So you can never take anybody you can never take anybody lightly. But when you look at the Houston Texans, the big thing that you're looking at in this game also is their key component on the offense side of the ball, running back Dameon Pierce. He'll be out this week, is from what is being said, with the ankle injury. That really hurts this offense because they rely on him, and he is a good runner. He's a physical runner, and I know that they've got some depth at that position, but that'll make a big difference in this game. I thought David Mills, when you watch that game against Dallas, played his best ball game, and then Jeff Driscoll, the way in which they were able to come in here and kind of supplement him, he created some plays, threw a touchdown pass, and then they're opportunistic. When you look at Dallas and how that game played out, you're like, well, they had a muffed punt that set them up on a short field. They had an interception off the deflection that set them up for another touchdown. And so they made some plays, Houston did, but at the end of the day, they weren't able to get it in on 4th and 1. And that was the difference, because they should have won that game.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, I think you look at it and it really took almost a miracle for the Cowboys to pull that one off. And you're right. I love the 2-quarterback system with the way they use Davis Mills and Driscoll, brought in Driscoll to add kind of that zone read option element to the offense. It was cool and it worked. It was effective. But you're right. Without Dameon Pierce in there, it's going to be tough. They were already down their top 2 receivers as well. Brandon Cooks and Nico Collins were out last week. We'll see if they take the field again this weekend. But it was cool too to see opportunities for guys for the Texans that are trying to make a name for themselves. We saw Amari Rodgers get outcast in Green Bay for not being able to make things work, or not really being able to click with Aaron Rodgers, and he scores his first career touchdown.
Which is pretty crazy to think about, right? You're in Green Bay all those years, and then all of a sudden your first career touchdown happens when you're not on Green Bay. I mean, it's pretty crazy to look at that. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so you're right. So this is a team that has these guys that are fighting for their futures right now. So it's not something you can take lightly. Obviously, we expect the Chiefs to win this game and probably win it handedly. But there is a lot of motivation there from the Texans, and Mahomes also might have added a little motivation for the Texans, because I don't know if you caught. Do you remember when he was on with the Kelsey brothers a few weeks ago, and he was talking about how he kind of engineered his way into Kansas City. He told the Chiefs, hey, if you're going to trade up for you, make sure you get ahead of 12. Well, right. He didn't say it, but if you go back to that draft, the team that was sitting at 12 was the Houston Texans. And they end up taking Deshaun Watson, obviously, there. So, if I'm a Texans fan, I may feel some type of way about that.
Hey, let's be honest. I mean, Patrick Mahomes, the fact that he did that and he had the foresight, are you kidding me? Can you imagine if you're at the Houston Texans versus the Kansas City Chief, who has been the perfect marriage for him throughout his career? But he already knew. He's like, look, please, dear God, just get up in front of 12 and get me. It's just the way it's worked out, and the way in which he spoke about it was pretty remarkable.
Yeah, and doing that too, knowing that means you're probably going to be sitting for a year, versus a place in Houston where it was like Tom Savage was the returning starter and you knew you were going to have a great chance to play. Like he had the foresight to realize, hey, maybe sitting for a year is a good thing for me, especially with that coaching staff and getting to learn behind a guy like Alex Smith.
Right. You know what? So much of the time it's got to be a system fit. And he recognized through talking to Matt Nagy and Coach Reed and all those guys. I heard the story that Nagy really liked him a lot and went and helped him in the interview process because he knew he was coming to the facility, and he stayed up all night and he studied the plays, and they were able to figure out when he went into the Andy Reid and he started to interview him and go through some concepts and plays. He's like, wow, this guy is on it, not knowing that he was given the material prior to. But at the same time, success in this league, you have to be in the right system fit with the right coaching staff, and it was just the perfect player for the perfect system, and so it's been fun to watch his growth. But at the same time, like you said, understanding, hey, I might have to sit behind Alex Smith, and he's a professional, a guy that probably he respected. But at the end of the day, he had enough confidence in his own abilities that once it was his time to take over, that's the reason why they drafted him, and he was going to get an opportunity sooner or later.
Yeah, and it is awesome to look back. It was great to hear that story. Some of those stories and stuff we haven't really gotten to hear out of Patrick before.
Right.
And obviously the way that everything has worked out, it's just it gives you the chills a little bit to hear some of the stories and knowing how everything panned out. But yeah, well, I think at this point in the season too, I mean, we've seen some great efforts out of certain players. I know Joe Burrow's coming on strong, but Patrick has to be the MVP right now, right? Heading into this final month.
I mean, I would say that it's either him or Jalen Hurts. The way in which Jalen Hurts has played this year, I mean, yes, you can absolutely make a case for Joe Burrow, but the consistency in which Jalen Hurts has played, the ability to improve that passing game, he hasn't just improved. I mean, it's been remarkable to see the strides that he's made from year one to year two, the deep ball. And I know he's got weapons around him, but also when they're not throwing the ball, his contributions in the run game, and he's been outstanding. It's just they're also a team that's got the best record in the NFL as well. So I'd say right now it's Mahomes, it's Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts might not have those remarkable, flashy, magical plays that we see with Patrick Mahomes, but at the same time, his consistency factor throughout the entire season definitely puts him in the discussion.
Yeah, that's a great point. And the progress that we've seen, you can tell. I mean, really, when you look at Jalen Hurts and you go back to even just from his freshman year at Alabama, where he was very much in the spotlight, leading that team to a national championship. But you looked at him and you're like, I don't know if this guy's really an NFL prospect. He's erratic as a passer, and the way he developed throughout his college career. And so far, the way he's developed in such a short period of time in the NFL, you go back to last season, his final game of last season, that playoff loss to the Buccaneers, the Bucs left the door open for them to get back in that game, and he couldn't hit anybody. He really struggled, and you could tell he went to work this offseason and really refined his craft. And yes, AJ Brown helps out a lot, but you're right. You can't just look at this like, oh, they got AJ Brown, that's why he's doing so well. No, he's come a long way. And you look at throws, the confidence he's throwing the football with, that 4th and 7 last week against the Giants that really broke that game open. You can't throw a better ball than that. And to have the guts to make that throw in that situation,
right. That's what I'm talking about. Yeah, I mean, and that's why when you sit there and you say it's a for sure thing, maybe, throughout the course of the year, I would say most of the time, absolutely, Patrick Mahomes is the MVP of this league for so many different reasons, because of the different personnel that he's dealt with this year, because of how he makes this team better, how he makes this team go. This offense is nowhere close to being the same, scary offense that they are to the opponents without Patrick Mahomes. But then again, when I looked at Jalen Hurts, and it just he continues to get better. And that's also another part of it as well. And his ability to stand in there and deliver under pressure, the accuracy in which he's doing. And again, like I said, his ability to be a runner and a true runner and make yards and make those tough yards just puts him absolutely in the conversation with those two guys right now.
And it's going to be an interesting race to watch here down the stretch. The Chiefs going for the 1 seed, and also Mahomes gunning for that second MVP. It's going to be fun. It's been a fun year. It's going to be even more fun here as things get decided over this last month. So, Matt, great job today. Everybody, thank you for tuning in. Appreciate you, man. We'll be back here with you next week. Break everything down from that game against the Texans and keep looking forward. Keep hitting all those big storylines. Everything Chiefs. So appreciate you guys tuning in, and we'll see you again next week. Enjoy the game on Sunday.